Hi everyone, Russell Jude here from Edge Designations, a company where we offer prep services for the CFA, FRM, KIA, and FDP programs. If you're interested in our programs, do take a look at our website, www.edgedesignations.com, for more details. This particular video is number 3 in our series of a total of hopefully 6 videos where we show you how to use your calculator, the Texas BA2 Plus or the Texas BA2 Plus Professional. Both of those are covered in these particular videos. The first video that we have covered already in how to use your calculator was a basic setup video showing you how to set up your Texas calculator. Video number 2 in our series was time value of money. We're moving on now to video 3, which is handling cash flows, internal rates of return, IRRs, and net present value. All very, very important functions within your CFA, FRM, and KIA syllabus. Keep in mind, of course, we mentioned this previously, that the Texas calculator is a very commonly used calculator for CFA, FRM, and KIA, and is accepted with all of those programs, and is probably the most commonly used calculator for those programs. And that's, of course, why we've decided to cover this calculator specifically as part of our series. We move on a little bit over here to the next page. We are looking at cash flow calculations, and we're going to look at how to do cash flow calculations using your Texas BA2 Plus calculator. What's important to remember is that cash flows can also be done on the normal time value of money functionality. And for example, when the cash flow is a single cash flow and is the same throughout the period, then we can use our normal time value of money PMT function, the payment function, because that cash flow will remain the same throughout the period. However, when we've got different cash flows, like I'm going to show you in my example over here, different cash flows throughout the period, then unfortunately we are going to have to use the cash flow functionality, which is a little bit longer in terms of its time to use, but very, very powerful and efficient. Okay. First and foremost, I'm going to do the cash flow function, okay, the functionality. We will then lead on to the net present value and IRR calculations after that. Let's do this by way of example. So I've got a project called Project Edge, nice name, okay, and look at the cash flows on my particular project. Year 0, negative 1,000, year 1, positive cash inflow of 750, and year 2 to 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 5 years worth of cash flows, all the same amount of 150. And you'll see, of course, we did that purposefully to try and illustrate one of the strong functions that the cash flow mode has got. Okay, so first and foremost, as you know by now, we go into our calculator here, and don't forget to push the on button. That's always the best thing to do. Okay, calculator is now on. Now we need to go to our cash flow mode. So we push CF. We are now in the cash flow mode. The cash flow mode is a series of functions that will record all the cash flows in this particular bank of cash flows. Okay, first and foremost, okay, our very first cash flow, let's get ourselves going because it says to me CFO, cash flow in time period 0. And as you can see, the calculator's currently got a value of 0, and we wanted to have a value of negative 1,000. Now, if we've put that into the calculator, you can see that there on the left-hand side. What is so important to remember, and this is just a general rule that we have with the Texas calculator, that is not yet in the memory bank until such time as we push enter. Once we push enter, I'm going to take us over the page here. Once we push enter, you can see that 1,000 then is into the memory bank, the cash flow memory banks. Okay. Massive functionality in terms of your Texas, guys, is your up and down arrows. Let us arrow down over there. Arrow 1 down and arrow 1 down says CO1. CO1 says cash flow 1. What is our cash flow 1? We know our cash flow 1 is 750, so we input that then into the calculator. Again, don't forget to push enter. Okay, now it is in the calculator, okay, and we get ready to arrow down again. What you see now on the calculator is F01. What is this F01? F01, F stands for frequency. The calculator is asking you, cash flow number 1 for 750, frequency, how many times do you want it repeated? And obviously the answer for us that we know over here is that we only want cash flow 1 of 750 to be repeated once. So we're happy that in the calculator is already frequency of cash flow 1 is equal to 1. We are happy to proceed. Okay, let's go over my page over there. We arrow down and now we come to CO2. CO2, not oxygen, CO2 stands for cash flow number 2. And we know cash flow number 2 is $150. Put that into your calculators. And again, guys, please don't forget to push the enter button. Enter. That cash flow is now in the memory banks. Okay, arrow down again. Now it says to you FO2. Cash flow 2 of 150. Currently, I've got it in my calculator, says the Texas, as a frequency of 1 to be repeated 1 time. But we know, what do we know? We know that this particular cash flow 2 of 150 gets repeated in time period 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 5 times. Now, this is what the calculator can do for you now. Look what we do. Okay, because we know that that cash flow gets repeated 5 times, I go 5. Now, FO2 is 5. It's got a frequency of 5 times. Again, I'm boring you now. Don't forget to push the enter button. It is now in. Okay, and now what the calculator, if you want to understand what's inside of your cash flow banks, $1,000 out, negative cash flow in time period 0, followed by a cash flow of 715 time period 1, followed by a cash flow of 150 that is to be repeated, as you can see FO2 on the screen, 5 times. Time period 2, 3, 4, 5, and then number 6 as well. Everything is now in your memory banks. Now, if you want to check this, a lot of candidates are a bit nervous to mess around with the calculator once all the inputs have been made. No need for that at all. Once you've pushed that enter button, it's completely in your calculators. You can mess around as you choose. It's often sometimes difficult to get those numbers out of your memory banks. We'll talk about that as well. But let's play around a little bit over here and let's push the arrow up button, arrow up, and I'm going to arrow up a little bit over there just to check my numbers, and there we go. CO1, cash flow in time period 0, negative 1,000. Good, that's what I want. Arrow down a bit over there. Cash flow 1, I can see 750. Fantastic, that's what I want. How often repeated? Only once. Also what I want. Arrow down again. CO2, cash flow in time period 2, $150. Arrow down is repeated 5 times. Often I like to arrow down again. Cash flow 3, nothing. Of course, that's what we want. I'm good to go. Okay, now I've got all my cash flows in my cash flow memory bank. Of course, we need to do something with them. Okay, let me move to the next calculation. The next calculation is going to be the IRR calculation, internal rate of return. And guys, just a little bit of background for those that are not that familiar with internal rate of return. That's the discount rate, which equates the present values of the project's net cash inflows with its cash outflows. It's a rate. Okay, and you can see I put it for you here. It's the present values of the cash flow. It's the rate where the present values of the inflows is equal to the present value of the outflows over there. And what I've done just to be consistent and to save us the time of having to input all those cash flows back in again, I've used the same example that we had previously for the first example, which was Project Edge, and you can see the cash flows are the same. Year 0, cash flow negative 1,000. Year 1, a cash inflow of 750. Year 2 to 6, a cash inflow of 150 for time period 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, again to be repeated 5 times. Remember, guys, okay, and I'm not going to do this with you right now. I don't want to do it right now because it'll get rid of all my cash flows. But all of those cash flows from previous are still in the cash flow bank. They will remain there whether you turn the calculator on and off, guys. Those cash flows, once inputted, are almost put there forever until you do what? You get rid of them. How do you get rid of them? As I say, I'm not going to do that with you now because I want them in, but you push the buttons, second function CE, second function CE clears all your work, clears all your memory banks. Okay, I'm not doing that now, of course, because I want all the cash flows in the cash flow bank from the previous example. And again, guys, if you wanted to, you could just go take a look over there. I'm going to just push them for you. As you can see, they're all still there. Cash flow 0, negative 1,000. Cash flow 1, positive 750 to be repeated frequency 1 time. Cash flow 2, 150 is in there. Frequency to be repeated 5 times. Everything is still in there. If I arrow down, cash flow 3 is 0. There's nothing there. My cash flows are exactly as I need them to be for this particular project. Okay, now we want to calculate the IRR. Okay, so remember, before you can do any IRR calculation for the same price, a net present value calculation, you need to have input all your cash flows into the cash flow mode. We've done that already in step 1. Now I am ready. I can just go and push the IRR button. The IRR button, as I push the IRR button, it says to me, I'm ready to calculate the IRR. At this point in time, the IRR is equal to 0, but I'm ready, says the computer calculator, and all I need to do is go to the top left-hand corner and push CPT, compute, and there's the IRR. 19.92. So for example, in this set of cash flows, what is my internal rate of return? 19.92. So it's a fairly simple calculation, guys. If I just clear the screen for you there, and let's go to the cash flow. And what do you notice? I've cleared my screen. I pushed clear, but I haven't cleared it completely by second function clear work. I just pushed clear. All those cash flows are still there. Not so easy to get rid of these cash flows once they're in. As mentioned, you're going to have to go second function clear work. But if I just push CE on and off, they are still going to be there. Okay, I push my IRR button and compute, and there is my 19.92 calculation done for you. That is how you do internal rates of return, nice and simply. Remember again, guys, just a quick summary. Step 1, put all the cash flows into the cash flow mode. Step 2 is then you work with the IRR mode, and of course you just push the compute button. And lastly, as part of this particular video number 3, we are going to be handling NPV. NPV stands for net present value. And remember, net present value is a very, very powerful calculation for finance, CFA, FRM, Kaya. Reason being is because a lot of the valuation methodologies, DCF, discounted cash flows, etc., all happen via the net present value. What is the price of a bond? And I'm going to do a separate video on bond pricing, guys, how to handle bond pricing. When we look at a bond pricing, okay, what is the price of a bond? It's present value. How do you calculate the present value? It's the net present value. How do you calculate the value of an equity? It's the discounted cash flows. Look at all the future cash flows, whatever they happen to be, dividends or a principal. Discount those back to today's date, you get to a price. Often the word present value and price are quite similar, aren't they? Okay. Now, we could do this manually. Okay. In other words, take cash flow 0. You can see I've got no time value adjustment there because often it happens in time period 0. Then I take plus cash flow 1 plus R or 1 plus K to the 1, plus cash flow 2, 1 plus K or R to the 2, the rate to the 2, plus next cash flow 1 plus that. You can see how long that's going to take. That's obviously a very manual approach to doing it, and we don't do net present value calculations manually. Okay. What we do, okay, is we make sure that we put them all into the cash flow mode. And again, can I calculate net present value using the PV button on time value of money? Yes, we can. When can we do that? If all the payments are the same number. Okay, if they're all the same number, then yes, we can do that as well. Okay, however, like in my previous example, which I'm going to continue onwards with, okay, we notice that those payments are all different amounts. I can't use the payment button. The payment button for the time value of money calculation, okay, only refers to when there's one payment and that payment is the same. Okay, and of course, that rates remain the same as well. Let's have a look at an example over here. Believe it or not, we've got the same calculation. Okay. And I've got year 0, cash outflow of $1,000. Year 1, 750 cash inflow. Year 2 to 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Don't worry to use your finger. Sometimes it helps to get to the number 5. And we repeat that cash flow, $150, 5 times. What's different over here, guys, as you notice, I've put a cost of capital, cost of equity, whatever it happens to be. It's my interest rate here of 13%. Okay. Remembering again, let's go and have a look over here. Let's go and look at my cash flows. Have I second function cleared them? Not yet, so they should still all be there. And you push cash flow, and there they all are. Cash flow 1, let's just make sure again. Cash flow 0, negative 1,000. Cash flow 1, positive 750, to be repeated once. Arrow down. Cash flow 2, 150 positive. F, frequency, to be repeated 5 times. Arrow down again. Nothing for cash flow 3. My cash flow in my cash flow banks are all exactly where I need them to be. Okay. We continue onwards now, guys, with where we were before. Okay. Remembering, before you can do IRR, before you can do net present value calculations, you need to make sure, okay, you need to make sure that all the numbers are already, all the cash flows have already been input correctly into your cash flow mode. Any errors in that first step or in the cash flow banks are going to lead to errors. So always go back and just check those. And again, don't be scared to use arrow up and down. Once they're in, as you can see from our calculations, they are in. Okay. Now, they're all in my cash flow mode. Now I want to calculate the net present value. So first and foremost, we push the NPV button and comes up I equals 0. In other words, the interest rate is 0. Okay. Remember, for a net present value calculation, we are going to input an interest rate in order to be able to calculate the net present value. So let's put in 13, guys. And again, remember, as you can see, I just put the number 13, although, yes, we know that's 13% for interest rate in net present value. For interest rates in time value of money, we don't put it as a percentage. Okay, so there is my 13 now put in as the interest rate. And of course, we push enter, because if we don't push enter, nothing happens. Okay, look what I do now that it's in those in the calculation. I arrow down and it says to me NPV is 0. Okay, why does it say NPV 0? Because I haven't yet calculated it. But guys, remember, now that I've put 13% as the interest rate, I can arrow up and just check that if I like. There it is, it's still in. Okay, arrow down, NPV is still there again at 0. And of course, if I want to calculate the NPV, what do we push? CPT compute. Now I get my net present value of 130.6 in my calculator over there. And guys, remember, okay, to get all of the stuff out, you're going to have to push second function CE to clear all your memory. Okay. Until then, it's all in your calculators. Okay, and you can see that there's my net present value of 130. What does that mean, by the way? All that means is that with those specific cash flows and a interest rate, a discount rate, an equity rate, cost of equity of 13%, I get your net present value of 130. And yes, that's positive. And I would continue on with the project based then on that. Now that we have finished all of that, this is the end and the conclusion then of video number 3, where we started off looking at cash flows, moved on then to IRRs, and then on to net present values. We will continue onwards with video number 4.